All right, so not to put you on the spot, but Lauren, this is basically for you because you weren't able to be here yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick review of what we went over. All right, and Grace must still be sick. All right, I had people start by going out here, so you can do that if you want to. You don't want to, you don't. But it is the Google course on Android Developer Fundamentals. It has literally 4 units in it. We are going over just Unit 1, which is getting started. That unit has 10 units in it. They have code labs for it that I have copied all of them and stuck them in a humongous Word document, but I got to remember to bring it, just go grab it during the break. But what we did yesterday was we started going through Unit 1. As you can see, it's called Getting Started. And it's all about, as it says, building your first Android app. All right. So it's this code lab. I don't know what we'll code lab. All right. So what we ended up doing yesterday was we went through about the first half or so of this thing right here, this Android Developer Fundamentals. You can read it yourself. I'm sure you can pick it up. All right. But am I right in assuming you have Android Studio already loaded? All right. Then you can do this. I'll catch you back up fairly quickly. So when you're in here like this, I'm going to close this. Go ahead and start up Android Studio. You did watch it. Okay. You're up to there. Oh, good. Then that's fine. Then let's just get started. That's great. Thank you. I never know. When I say to people, watch the videos, because you weren't feeling well, especially, so I didn't know, And I've been told sometimes when people watch my videos, they feel worse than they did before, not better. So, all right. We left off yesterday basically about here. So I'm taking for granted everybody can fairly quickly log in or get into Android Studio, bring up that fairly simple hello world we did yesterday. Hopefully you remember it looks like this. There's not really a lot to it. Yours may be a different color or whatever. That doesn't matter a bit. All right? What we are going to do today is add code. All right, we're going to add code to make that button work. And I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can add code to make the button work. Why would I show you 2 ways? Because some developers do it one way, some do it the other way. And if it would ever turn out that you would become an Android developer, you'd want to make sure you knew how to maintain their code both ways and exactly what it means. All right. I've done lectures like this before, and people, well, which one should we use? Whichever one makes more sense to you is the one you should use. I'm going to give you an assignment today, not to turn in, but just to start getting into the flow of things. And it'll have 2 buttons on it. I'm going to ask that you do one button one way and the other button the other way. Does that make sense? Just again, so you can get some practice doing this. In fact, now that I think about it, I'm sure that I'm probably missing something in here, but I'm going to quickly print off 10 copies just so when we get to that point, I can give them to you. It's only 2 pages front and back, and some of it is just pictures, just so you know. All right. Okay, so I'll be doing this. I'm sure there'll be some noise in the background. Again, it's not that big a thing. All right. I do want to make sure everybody understands a few different things that are in here. All right. Yours may not look exactly like mine right now. I built it, I removed stuff, I built it again, and I removed stuff. Are you with me? But I could have forgotten to remove some of the stuff. So I might have some import statements and some other stuff you might not have yet. You'll all have them pretty quick. All right, so don't worry about that. As mentioned yesterday, this edu.rankin.jpscott.hello world that package is literally, if I go and look in here, that is, I don't want to be in Gradle. That is this. Well, maybe it's not that one. It might be this one. There it is. All right. Right there. That's this one. So when you see that, typically, virtually every time you create an Android app, it'll have a package associated with it. Now, I could have shown you packages when we were doing the IntelliJ stuff. I was more concerned with trying to pump as much Java into your bloodstream as possible in a week. So I didn't want to get into more stuff that I didn't think we'd have to do yet. The point is, when we get done with this, here's a surprise today. We're going to start creating another one. All right, when we get done with that one, we're going to start creating another one. All right? Each one of those will have its own package. After we get done with this, we're going to do a really simple one. I'm going to ask you to at least start it, see how far you can get, and then we'll go through all of it as a class. It's going to be simple. It's going to be a simple miles per gallon program. All right, and after that, we're going to do a BMI. Yeah, I know you know the logic. I'm trying to get you to where you understand how to set something up in an Android framework. All right, that's what I'm concentrating on right now. All right. So as far as the stuff that's in here, again, notice I've got an import statement. This import statement basically says provide Android app compatibility with earlier versions. You should always do that. All right, that'll be put in there automatically, but there was that checkbox when we started that talked about app compact or whatever the heck it was. Always make sure that's checked. All right? Okay. Then, again, you may or may not have this, but I've got a few. No, I guess that's all I have in here. I did remove most of them. Yeah, I guess I did. All right. This is Android operating system bundle. I believe that gets put in there by default. I want to concentrate for right now on this. Notice public class main activity extends app compact activity. Every bit of code that you want to put in for this screen, a screen is also known as an activity, has to go between that curly brace and that one. Not asking you that, I'm telling you that. All right? But underneath this, we can add extra code and stuff if we want to. You typically do. All right? Now, usually what you do, and I'm just going to put this, I just want to make sure everybody sees right where we are. Typically what you do is you take variables that you're going to use in the app and you define them up here. See that? You can have local variables in a routine, but anything you're going to be using all over the place, you're not going to want to pass around. All right? So you'll typically put them in there. So I'm going to put a few in there right now. All right? I'm assuming when we do this, I'm assuming that you use the same names that I did when we set this stuff up. All right? If you didn't, you're going to have to just change it accordingly. If you, well, I don't know what you mean. What I mean is this. If you go back and look over here, this field right here, we're not going to put any, there's no code or anything there, but that field I called text view title. This one right here I called edit text name. This one right here I called button calculate. If you called yours something different, you're going to have to change it in the code that you make. All right? Okay. So I'm getting right here, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to define some program constants. Please follow along. All right? Not going to try to lose anybody, and I know I'm not going too fast yet, but if I am going too fast, please stop me. If there's something you don't understand or there's something you think I did wrong, please stop me. This morning I was going over with the class. We were doing a pre-test because they're having their first real hands-on test this Friday, and I accidentally keyed in. I had the right code, except I had the wrong variable in there, and no one said anything. All right, and I think it was, well, you know, we didn't think it was wrong. You did it that way. No, if you think I screwed something up, ask. I do more than my share of screw-ups. All right, I'm going to create 3 variables in here. All right, the first one's just going to be a simple string, and it's going to take whatever is in there and it's going to put it into a variable called name. Okay, you with me? That's what it is. Then I'm going to create a variable of type edit text, and guess what? I'm going to call that variable, I can call it whatever I want, but I'm going to call it edit text name. Then I'm going to create a variable of type button, and I'm going to call it button calculate. You don't have to call it that. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm telling you this is the way I'm doing it. So as we go in here and look at our code, here are my three variables. String name, and I'm going to initialize that just to the empty string. Edit text. Now look on the screen, please. See where that's red? There is a Java file where edit text is defined. Please just watch as I continue on. So edit text name. You see how it changed? The system is smart enough that it automatically added this line of code. You can manually enter it. You can manually enter it, or you can just keep typing, and typically the system will enter it for you. Sometimes if it gives you an error, if you just take your mouse and put it over the error, okay, they'll give you a way to fix it. All right, so that's the first one. String name. Edit, there's the second one. Edit text name. Here's the third one. Button calculate. Calculate. All right? And again, I do want you to understand, this is representing that edit text where we're adding the name. This is representing that button that has on there calculate. But if you look on the screen, we could have called this just, your name. We could have called this calculate. The program would work fine. What you oftentimes find happening is people will call it, in their code, they will call it the same thing that they have it on their design page. It is not mandatory that you do that, but quite often, that's what people do. All right? Now, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence, but I just want to make sure you all get it. The idea is what we want to have happen. If you look on the screen, I want to run this program. I want to click inside of here, right there, by edit text name. I'm going to type in Jeff, and then I'm going to click the calculate button. Down here, it's going to bring up a message that'll stay for about 3 or 4 seconds, and it'll say, hello, Jeff. Does that make sense? All right. I realize you're not going to sell this app. If you do, you're probably not going to find very many people who buy it. All right. But that isn't the point. I just want us to go through something, have everybody get a success, so to speak. All right. I want you to get that under your belts, as they say. All right. Now, typically, again, you define your variables outside of any routine. But, and I could have done it this way too, but I didn't. Typically, you initialize your variables in the onCreate routine. OnCreate is called basically when the app starts. In a later lesson, we're going to go and we're going to take a look at the entire life cycle, so to speak, of an app and what can happen. You're running an app with a game on it. The phone rings. So what happens? It depends. All right? The app might shut down. The app might be paused. There's a lot of stuff that happens. And let's suppose, for example, that it's paused. You're playing a game, and you're playing the game on your phone, and there's scoring and levels and whatever. That's potentially a lot of stuff that the system has to remember. So you can go back again and be right where you just were. All right? And again, we're going to get to all that stuff. So in here, in my onCreate, I'm going to come in and yes, I'm going to put some code. Now, I want you to type this stuff in, please, but I'll wait till I'm done until I explain it to you. It's just 2 lines. There's enough to type. Okay, I spelled calculate wrong up above. Sorry. So if you wrote calculate, change it to calculate. Okay. The way that I'm showing you to do this, you may end up getting warnings over here that says it's redundant, you don't have to do it anymore. I still do it so I don't get burnt. Yeah, are you all with me? All right. If you run this program, if you look on the screen right now, we don't have much there, but I have 3 warnings. And if you say, I just can't deal with warnings, go back and fix them. All right. I don't care if you've got some warnings. A lot of the warnings you're going to end up getting, you've seen this already, are going to be typos. It's got a very limited dictionary in here. So you might have 50 warnings, and 40 of them might be typo things. All right, so don't worry about that. The other ones, whether you fix it or don't fix it, that's up to you. All right. I don't hear anything, so I'm taking for granted that everybody has this typed in. Okay? What we're doing right here is we are initializing this variable called edit text name, and we are initializing the variable called button. And even more than initializing them, we're basically setting them up. So in other words, because that sounds weird, what we're saying is that variable that's called edit text name holds, it's going to be associated with that right there. And the one called button calculate is going to be associated with that one. Does that make sense? All right, just so that the system knows. All right, but it's more than that. Because notice what we're doing. We're calling this thing twice that's called find view by ID. All right? And a view, for lack of better words, a view is basically a control. So the system is saying that someplace we've got a control that's been identified as edit text name. We've got another control that's been identified as button calculate. All right? And notice it says R dot, which may confuse you, may not. But in one of these resource files that's in here, something that's in here, this res generated, all right, I think it's that one, but it's one of these. They have, it's called an R file, R for resources. Okay? You can use this R file to set this stuff up, but never go in and change any of this stuff. If you don't ever even open up a file that starts with R, if you can help it. Those are system files. Okay? In the morning class today, one of the students, if you remember in C#, did not go into their code file. They went in, and they didn't go into their form file. They went into that form designer, the one that the system sets up, and they added a few things and removed a bunch of stuff. Then they couldn't understand why their program wasn't working. And on the first day of class, one of the things I said was, don't ever even open those files. I opened mine to show them what was in it, but I said, don't ever open it. And on the second day, I said, 3 rules are, you put your controls on the screen, you rename your controls, then you double-click on them to add code. Well, this person would put in a control, double-click on it to add some code, and not change the name. And then later change the name. Okay, so I don't want you guys to do that. Don't open up any R file. Right? I believe, if you look up on the screen, what this actually returns here, I could be wrong, but I think it returns an integer, believe it or not. And I don't know if it's its position or what. So what we do is we have to cast it to the type of variable we want. Well, edit text name is an edit text. You can see that there. Button calculate is a button. So we cast them. So we are doing, for lack of better words, right there, we are doing what's referred to as an association. That's not an official word. It's not what I made up. But I don't know if you go out and look at enough documentation exactly what they'll call it. All right, but that's what I refer to it as. Now, I'm going to take your question in a second. There's one more thing I want to say, then I want to take Chris's question. That is, right now, what we have to do next in here, and this is going to take up most of the rest of the program. We have to let the system know that when we click this, all right, and there's a name here, we want to say hello followed by the name on the bottom. Does that make sense? There's no association yet. And when I say association, the system doesn't know when you run the program and you click that button to do anything. That's what we're doing next. All right, yes?
What was the box's name, the enter name?
This one?
Yeah.
Edit text name. And the button is button calculate. Right? Now, this is where I mentioned to you before, we're going to write code. I'm going to want everyone's to work. Okay, did you hear me? I want everyone's to work. I'm not going to go around and check. I can see Tom's machine, and that's about it here. A little bit of Evan's. But I'm going to say, is it working for everybody? And as soon as you say, yes, it's working, we're going to comment everything out that we just put in to make it work. Because I'm going to show you the other way of doing it. All right? Because, again, some people like to do it one way. Some people like to do it the other way. So I'm going to immediately show you both ways of doing it. All right? So what we want to do, if you do remember that if we had a button on a C# form, if I have a button called button calculate and I double click that button, it brings up button calculate _ click. Everybody with me? We're going to do the equivalent here right now in Android. But we don't call it click. We call it setting an Onclicklistener. I didn't make up the name. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to come down here. I'm going to skip, just have one blank line. And I'm going to type in, you can do this, button calculate dot set. Now look up on the screen. You see the IntelliSense here? It says, okay, you can have any of these sets. I do want the Onclicklistener. That may not be your first one. I did it the other day, so mine jumped to the top. But yours might just start with accessibility. Then you can keep typing, and you'll notice if you put an O there, boom, now it's just the O's. If I put on and a C for click listener, I keep knocking it down. And finally, if I put an L in there, now there's only 2 or 3 left. All right, and that's the one I want. So I'm going to hit tab. All right, that's what we have right now. It's not complete. That's why we're getting the error. You could manually type this whole thing in too. It's totally fine. All right. After we've got it that far, there is a shortcut that I use all the time. You might use it, you might not. There's some stuff we want to type in. We can do it 2 ways. I'm going to just show you one way and then explain the other way. I'm going to type in here the word new. All right, the word new is space. I'm going to type in a capital V, new and a capital V. Then I'm going to hit the enter key. And it made all of this for me. I typed in the word new. I typed in the word new, followed by a space and a capital V, and I hit the enter key. Then the rest of this was set up for me. And if you raise your hand and go, well, that didn't work for me, try it again. If it still doesn't work, you can always manually type it in. All right? What this is saying is, this is the code we want to have fire. So we're listening for a button click. Once we get a button click, we want the on-click code to run. All right? Again, I'm not saying, does that totally make sense? It might make sense. It might not make sense. All right? So this is what we want to have happen once we click the button. Right now, there's still nothing because there's no code in the guts, so to speak. All right? Well, hopefully you agree with me. This thing right here in blue, that holds what's in here. All right? But what we want to do is we want to take that edit text name and put it into a string so we can manipulate it. That's the first thing we want to do. All right? So the way we do that, we say name equals edit text name dot get text dot toString. This for lack of better words, this might sound like a very strange way to put it, but for lack of better words, you're going to become intimate with this command. You're going to put this kind of command in that many times. This is basically saying I want to grab whatever text is in a variable and I want to put it into my own local variable. And I should rephrase that. It says grab any text that's inside of a control and copy it to my variable. Everybody hear that? All right. And notice we've got a getter. It's the first getter we've seen. We're going to look at set too before we get done today. All right. So we've got this name equals edit text name. All right. So it says go over to that control, get its text, and make sure you convert it into a string. All right. So right now, name should have the same thing that the text box or the edit text has in it. All right. We just copied it. That's it. All right. Now, the first thing is true or false. It's possible a person could leave it empty. The answer is true. So we want to account for them leaving it empty. In other words, if you run the program right here, okay, and it runs, and you just click calculate and there's no name there, enter name here as a hint. That's not text in there. We want to decide, and we don't have to do anything. We could not do anything. We could say hello followed by not a name, but I was feeling in a weird mood or whatever yesterday. So did you ever have that where when you were going to school and you had picture day and somebody didn't show? And sometimes they would put them in there and they would say camera shy. I said name shy. That's what I did. It doesn't mean anything, but if you don't put anything in there, it says hello name shy. All right? Luke runs it and puts Luke in there, it's going to say hello Luke. All right? We didn't have to do that, but I just did it. So I came in here and said this. If name dot is empty. Why that? Because that's the same way that we used to check for the, remember how we used to check for the empty string equals, double quote, double quote? This is how we do it here. All right? So this says, I'll even put a comment up above it. Check for blank name. In other words, no name input. All right? So that's what I'm checking for in here, is they didn't put any name in there. So I'm going to just set it. And I set name equal to, and I just called it name shy. Maybe that's a stupid name. You could put anything in there you wanted to. Again, that's the code that is going to fire. That code is going to fire this right here, only if I left the edit text blank. Otherwise, there already is a name in it. Now, Chris runs this and puts 2306. As far as the system knows, that's Chris's name. So it's going to say hello 2306. We could come in and check to make sure it's alpha. We're not doing that stuff now. All right? So once we get here, if you look up on the screen, once we're here, right there, either we put something in there or we had name shy put in there for us. Okay? So what we want to do next is we want to print a message that just says hello followed by whatever's in the name. That's it. Okay, and if you look up on the screen, please, I may have mentioned this yesterday, I don't remember. It's going to appear down here. There'll be a little message that's going to be like a little pop-up. It's going to last for 3 or 4 seconds and then go away. I don't know how this name they came up with it. They call it a toast. All right, and I think it is the way that it came up was how a toast pops up from a toaster. Well, this is popping up on the screen. I think that's how they named it. I don't know. All right, but the point is that is its real name. Why does that matter? Because if you want to declare what you want in there, you've got to declare a toast. So we're going to say this. Toast, and it has to be with a capital T. That is a type of variable. And I'm going to call my toast, toast. Okay? And I'm going to say it's equal to toast.makeText. And a bunch of this stuff I'm going to have to explain to you in a minute. I'm putting this on multiple lines just so you can all read it. The good news, that's everything. Okay? And as soon as you're all done typing, I'll go over every line of it. Look on the screen, please. You can type that as one continuous line if you want to. All right? Whatever is easiest for you, I put it on multiple lines so you can all read it. That's all. Make sure when you type the toast.show down here, you use a lowercase t. If you use an uppercase T, you're going to get an error. All right? Now, you're still typing, not a problem. But this is how, like we said, int, age equals something. Well, now we're saying toast. We're just calling it toast. You don't have to call it that. You could call it greeting, and it would work just fine. All right, then you'd say greeting.show instead of toast. Most people tend to call their toasts toast. All right, some books will tell you, oh, don't use toast unless you have to. They're a waste, they're this, they're that. Don't overuse them, but you can use them. It's not a problem. The biggest problem is, and I'm going to run this in just a second, but the biggest thing is sometimes people aren't really paying attention to their screen. And if a toast is on there for just a few seconds, they may not even notice it. All right? All right, so what we're saying here is we want to create a new variable. It is of type toast. We are going to call it toast. And then we're going to have to make up what goes inside of it. All right? So we're making the text up that goes inside of it. Now, what I'm going to tell you next is going to be probably a god-awful explanation. All right? But it's the only one I can give you. Do you remember when we were doing straight Java and we would call a routine and we'd say this dot? Remember that? And I said the word this was a keyword and it meant your current, basically it's what's referred to as your current context. Well, when you do this, when you create a button where you've got an Onclicklistener, rather than using this, you use get application context, which basically is doing the same thing. All right? This is what we want to appear here. The word hello followed by either name shy or the name we put in there. And when you put it in, you've got your choice. You can do a toast.length long, or you can do a toast.length short. Long is about twice as long. So Abby raises her hand and says, what if I don't want long or short? Is there something I can do? And the answer is yes. You can create your own variable and give it a value, like you might call it duration, and you could set it for half a minute. And then you could change that to your variable name on there instead of toast.length long or toast.length short. We're just using long. If you get it to work when you get done, change it to short and notice the difference in timing. All right? Then we're just telling it to show the toast on the screen. So I'm going to come up and do a file, save all. Whoops, I missed, I don't know. Do a file, save all. Then to run this again, I'm going to click right there. Okay? And it should, there it brings up my emulator. Weird things happened this morning with this emulator. First, it got so big, I couldn't see all of it on the screen. And then it got so small, you could barely see it on the screen. And it kept popping back and forth between those sizes. I don't know why. But I'm going to come in here. I'm not going to put in anything. So it is empty. Notice, look on the screen, please. I'm going to click Calculate. Hello, name shy. Okay? Did exactly what I thought it would do. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to click here, and I'll put my name in. Jeff, you've got your choice if you look on the screen after you do this. You can either click this green button right here in the bottom right-hand corner to make that go away, or you can click down here on the down arrow to make it go away. Now I'm going to click Calculate again, and notice now it's Hello, Jeff. All right? Again, like I said, this isn't a world beater, but I wanted everybody to get it to work. If you think you typed in everything correctly and yet yours does not work, then please raise your hand. And if that's the case, in all seriousness, don't be embarrassed. Don't think, yeah, well, I'm the only one who didn't work. I want yours to work. All right? Yes. Didn't work? All right. Oh, you know what it is. What do you have to do? Plus sign. Is that a plus sign there?
Yeah.
Equals it.
Oh.
You know, adding it, you're saying name equals that. Save it, try it again. Anybody else? And again, I realized the screen went blue. Try to fix that. We're going to take a break in a couple minutes. There's pizza back there if anybody wants any. Yes. Well, you can already tell. There's two ways. One is you can take your mouse, put it on there, and it'll show you what it is. So that's text retitle, that's right. Then take your mouse and put it here. Right? You can change it right now. So change that to edit text. Little E-D-E-T, I'm sorry, little E-D-I-T. No, then no space. Big T, little E-X-T. T on the end. Okay, we have a big N, A-M-E. Now, go ahead and hit enter. Sometimes when you do that, it might come back and say, a refactor box like this might come up. And if it says you want to change everything, you do it. So you change that one, and go to there, and that should be called button calculator. If it already is, try running it. You might have to do the same once to be sure that it picks up your changes. D-U-T-T colon, I can't even do it. Edit. Button, is that spelled the same way here? It's here? Try to the opposite stuff first. Take your mouse and pull it in here. I want to change this. Looks like a long paint arrows there. Right there. And I find symbol, edit text thing. And I find symbol, edit class button. Okay. So for some reason, okay, go ahead and move that up. Go where you've got your import, click on there, do it. Okay. Click the build menu option and type in clean project. That does it. Click clean project. That will run it to try to clean up any problems that you have. Come back up in a second, see how it says successfully. Do it again. Okay, click build again. And this time click rebuild project on the bottom. Again, it takes just a matter of seconds, typically, no more than a half a minute or so. Now, it's still giving you an error, so you have to
put a blank line in between where it says Android view, and Android view edit text. So put it right in the line you're on, hit the end line with that. Type in exactly what's here. Stop after you do a widget. So type in import Android .widget and then stop. Now, type in a B. Is there a button in there? Choose that one. Semicolon. Okay. Go back and this was save, edit, save all. Try to run it again. I don't know why it didn't pick that up, but it didn't pick it up. That one has
All right. Anyone else that had problems and it didn't work or whatever? Anybody? All right, we're going to take a break in just a minute, but before we do, you have now then learned one way to add code to a button click event. All right? It's only 121. So let's go through the other way. All right? Now, what you'll typically want to do is one of two things. Please look up on the screen. All right? If you click this kind of reddish square right here, if you click that reddish square, that will hopefully come up in a minute. This thing right here, that'll stop the program run. Your emulator is still going, but it stops the program run, this thing right here. All right? Your emulator is still there. See it? But it stopped it inside of the emulator. So the emulator is running. The program is not running inside of the emulator. I'm not even going to say, does that make sense? Because either it does or it doesn't. All right? But what we want to do is quickly, I'm like I said, hopefully in about 5 minutes. All right? We want to sit there and we want to find the other way that we can put buttons in here. Okay? So all of this code that we had right here, all of this, everything that we added at the end, let me make that, well, I guess I can't make it smaller. I want you to put a beginning comment right there, right before where it says button calculate.set Onclicklistener, put in a / followed by an asterisk. Everything from there on down is going to turn gray. So right before the button calculate.set Onclicklistener, put in a / followed by an asterisk. No spaces. If you put a space in there, it probably won't work. If you try doing it and it doesn't work, let me know. It should. All right. Anybody have a problem with that? Anybody? Then go down to this line right here. It's got a curly brace followed by a parenthesis followed by a semicolon. And then at the end of that line, put in a asterisk /. So what we have basically inside of our onCreate method now is just these two lines. Everything else in there should be, all right, commented out. Okay? Now, we want to get to the end of this routine. Look on the screen, please. We want to get to the end of this routine. So right there, before this second last curly, right there, I want you to hit enter twice, right there. We are going to come in and create our own routine. Everybody hear me? We're going to create our own routine. When you do this, because I forgot last night when I was going back and reviewing some stuff, and I was like, why isn't this working? It must be public. If you make it private, this won't work. All right, so public, void, because it's not going to return anything. You can call this whatever you want. I called it say hello. But you can call it whatever you want. It's got to accept what's called a view. You can call this view anything you want. Most people call it V. All right? Okay, why that's red right now, I'm not sure. Hopefully it'll get fixed. What we basically want to do is copy all this code we had in here. We're going to have to fix one thing. But we can go and copy everything that we put in here before. The toast and all that good stuff. All right? Not on click, but starting with name. I'm going to copy all of this, but not that curly brace. Stop at toast.show. And if you say that's too hard, then manually type it in. Why is it giving me the error? I think this is going to clear itself out later, but we'll see. All right? So the whole thing now looks like this. I've got a new routine. It's public. It's not going to return anything. And it's called say hello. It's doing the same thing that we did before. That's all the same code. All right? And like I said, I have no idea why it's giving me that error. It's not recognizing the end of this line, but I don't know why. Yes, I do. Yep. Okay, my error. Make sure, look on the screen, my error, I apologize. Okay, this thing, this on create, put one more ending curly brace before your public void say hello and remove one of the ones at the bottom. I apologize. If that confused you that bad and it doesn't work, let me know. I'll print you out a hard copy. It's not really that big a thing. Now, if we run it, it won't work. So you know, if we run this, it will not work. There are two places. There are two places we have to let the system know. Two places. We have to let the system know that when you click the button, we want say hello to run. Did you hear me? There's two places. So I'm going to show you them both. Before we do, I'm going to do a file, save all, and then I'm going to go back into my activity main right there. All right, once we're there, I'm going to literally single one time, click on the calculate button, just one time click on it. Okay, then look down in your attributes here. There's one. You might have to go down to where it says all attributes. Probably you will. I've already done it. But if you go down into all attributes, it's alphabetized. Find one that says on click. Okay? Now, what might happen is if you find that one, I've already done it, so sorry, I forgot to remove it. But I've already got it. What might happen when you do this, when you click this down arrow, it might show say hello, it might not. If it does not, manually type in say hello. Little S-A-Y, big H, little E-L-L-O. All right? So when you get done, it should look like this. Don't worry where it says main activity. That's no big thing. But if it doesn't have say hello in it, type say hello in it. And after you type that in, hit the enter key. It's not going to go anywhere, but hit the enter key. All right? Next, please look on the screen. You'll have to in order to be able to get this. Change from design mode where you are, go over to text mode. The other one that's down here. Click that and find your button. If this line is not in there, manually add it. Really doesn't matter where you add it. But if that line is not in there under your button, then you manually add it. What we're letting the system know right here is, hey, You got a button. This is a button. When you click it, call, say hello. All right, so you can see the changes I've made. I'm going to again do a file, save all, and I'm again going to run the program. And just like we tested it before, I'm going to put nothing in there, and it says hello name shy. I'm going to run it again, and I will put in my first name, and it says hello Jeff. Is what we just did may not seem, who cares? It's pretty damn big. Because you now know two different ways to basically add the equivalent of a button click event. One is by setting up the set on click listener like we did first, and then in the on click routine putting your code. The other one is a little bit more manual. It's recommended you write your routine first like we did. Then you go over to the on click, and either it'll be there when you click the down arrow, or if it's not, you manually type it in, and you make sure that it's also in your XML. All right, I'm not saying, do you get that? Does that make sense? It's one of those things that I believe, at least, as time goes on in here, it will make more and more sense to you. One thing you all have to realize in here, you came in here in the first semester, all right? And, I mean, I don't even know what you used for your text editor. At that time, mainly I was using Notepad++, which is a stupid editor, all right? Then we went into two straight semesters of Visual Studio, okay? Why am I telling you this? Because Visual Studio does things one way, Android Studio does things another way. Not only are they different as far as IDEs, but you're using them on different languages. All right? Is there anyone who thinks I put in everything you said and it ain't working? All right? Okay, then what we're going to do, it is 1:32, 1:33, all right? And by the time I get done talking, it'll be about 1:35. So we're going to take a break until until 1:50. But before we do, I want to show you what we're going to do when we come back. All right? I've got a hard copy of this for everybody, but I want to show it to you first. All right. I'm giving you a mock-up now. This is, I don't know if you remember the Balsamic mock-up product, but that's it. All right. So I actually didn't make this quite that wide, but you'll know it when you see it in just a minute. So what I want you to do is I want you to do the equivalent of creating this. Look on the screen because there's some stuff in here you haven't used yet. All right. If you don't know how to create the image, it's okay. You can put in what's called an image view. All right. And I'll go over how to do everything. But just see if you can do it. And if you go, well, how do I find out how to do it? Go out to developer.android.com, and they'll show you steps. Or I can show you after the break. It's not a big thing. Look on the screen, please. We're again going to have this time, if you notice, we're going to have 2 edit texts and 2 buttons. All right? Now, I'm going to quickly, hopefully quickly, I'm going to stop this run, and I'm going to bring mine up for you so you can see it. All right? And mine is nothing where, oops, I called it, yeah, okay. So this is mine right here. And if you go, it's okay, I guess. Yeah, it's all I really expect. All right, I figured out that since yesterday I used Bear colors, and since I am from Wisconsin, today I use Packer colors. All right? And, oh, let me get a little, there we go. So there's a title. there's an image, there's an edit text, there's an edit text, there's a calculate button, and there's a clear button. Okay? Just so you see this. Now your break is going to be even longer. It's going to be till 2. But just so you see this. So people say, well, what do I do? How did you put in this image right there? First thing I did is I went out to, this is a miles per gallon program. So the first thing I did was in Google, I went to Google Images. All right? Then I typed in MPG icon, miles per gallon. And I thought, well, I don't like those. And I kept looking until I found one I liked. In fact, I think I had to type in miles per gallon rather than MPG because that means something else. So miles per gallon icon. Okay? And I thought, well, like that one ain't bad, so that's the one I used. So I just right mouse clicked on it and I chose Save Image As. You can save it in a bunch of places. I just saved it for now. I literally saved it right to my desktop. All right, so I came in, I renamed it instead of download.jpg. I called it mpg.jpg. Everybody with me? Saved it. Boom, there it is. Then to actually put that in, you have to go over into your tool palette here, and if you can't see image view, if you can't see it, you can search for it or do whatever you want, but if I type in image, there's an image view. Just drag it in, all right, and okay, fine, now I've got this image view, what do I do with it? Okay, you make sure that it's active. In fact, I don't even think you have to, but then all you want to do is you want to go into your res drawable folder right there, and you want to go and drag that image that I had on the desktop, just drag it right onto that folder and it'll put it here. See that? All right. And then when you go in here and you go to, you'll have to go in and it'll tell you to pick an image. We'll do that after the break. It's 1:37. Okay. Let's come back at 1:55, please.